In today's video, we're going to tell you a story that will touch your heart. When a highly decorated police officer was laid to rest, hundreds gathered to honor his life. But no one expected what his retired K-9 partner would do. In the middle of the funeral, the dog broke free, walked up to the casket, then did something so strange and heartbreaking, the entire room went silent. What happened next uncovered a chilling secret that even the police had missed. This is the true story of a dog's strange behavior at a police officer's funeral. Make sure to watch this video to the very end, cause what this dog did was incredible. If this story moves you, give the video a like. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you will never miss an upload. Now, let's dive into the story. In a quiet Pennsylvania town nestled between rolling hills and thick pine forests, Officer Daniel Monroe was more than just a member of the police department. He was a pillar of the community. Tall, steady, and always calm under pressure, Dan had served for over 18 years. He never asked for praise. He just wanted to make the town safer for his wife, his daughter, and his most loyal companion, a retired K-9 named Shadow. Shadow wasn't just any dog. He was a German shepherd with a record that would put most rookies to shame. Dozens of drug busts, multiple rescues, and even tracking down a missing child in the dead of winter. When Shadow retired 2 years ago, Dan insisted he come home with him. They were partners. Family. On April 12th, a call came in about a robbery in progress at a convenience store. Dan, always first to respond, radioed in and sped toward the scene. What happened next would ripple through the entire town. A suspect fleeing the store fired blindly into the night. One shot. It hit Dan in the chest, just above his vest. He died on the way to the hospital. The news devastated the community. His fellow officers were shaken. His daughter, Ellie, just 9 years old, didn't understand how someone so strong could be gone. And Shadow, well, Shadow changed overnight. In the days following Dan's death, Shadow became eerily silent. He didn't bark. He didn't whimper. He barely moved. He would sit by the front door from dawn until dusk, ears pricked, as if waiting for Dan to come home in his patrol car. Every time a car rolled down the street, Shadow would lift his head, then slump when it wasn't Dan. He refused food for 3 days. The Monroe family, still deep in grief, tried to comfort the dog. Ellie would sit next to him with her small hand resting on his back. "Shadow," she whispered. "He's not coming home." Shadow just stared at the door. The funeral was scheduled for Saturday morning. Full honors. Officers from neighboring counties attended. The church was packed with hundreds of people, all dressed in navy and black. An American flag covered Dan's casket. His badge was displayed beside his folded uniform cap. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. As the bagpipes played Amazing Grace, Shadow sat in the front pew beside Ellie and her mother. The dog hadn't made a sound since Dan died, but during the hymn, his ears twitched. Then it started. Shadow stood up, his posture alert, military, almost. Slowly, he walked down the aisle toward the casket. No one moved. It was like the room collectively stopped breathing. He sat down right in front of the flag-draped coffin and began to whine, low, soft, mournful. The whine turned into a howl. Not loud, not panicked. A long, drawn-out sound that seemed to carry centuries of pain. And then, without warning, Shadow leapt. He didn't attack. He didn't knock anything over. He simply jumped up, placing both front paws gently on the casket. And then he rested his head. The entire room fell into stunned silence. Pastor Mark later said he'd never seen anything like it in 40 years. It wasn't just grief, he said. It was like the dog knew something. Shadow stayed like that for several minutes. Someone stepped forward, gently trying to guide him down, but he didn't budge. Ellie, through tears, said softly, "Let him say goodbye." Eventually, Shadow climbed down on his own and walked back to Ellie's side. But from that moment on, his behavior got even stranger. After the funeral, the Monroe family struggled to move forward, but Shadow's behavior became impossible to ignore. Each night, around 2:30 a.m., the exact time Dan was shot, Shadow would pace in circles by the front door, growling low. Then he'd bolt toward the back of the house, barking into the darkness. One night, Ellie's mom, still reeling from grief but worried for the dog, followed him. He led her to the garage, pawed at Dan's old locker, and whimpered. When she opened it, she found Dan's body cam, still intact from the night of the shooting. She hadn't even thought about it. It was supposed to have been collected as evidence, but in the chaos, it had been left behind. She turned it over to the department the next morning, and what they found changed everything. Dan's body cam revealed something that the initial police report missed. The suspect hadn't been acting alone. Another man, hidden in a black hoodie, had been sitting in a dark car across the street just before the suspect fired. The second man had signaled him with a subtle flick of headlights. The man was never seen again in the confusion. He had slipped away as police swarmed the store. Shadow had known. That pacing at 2:30 wasn't random. That growl toward the back of the house, toward the locker, it wasn't grief. It was instinct. Shadow had been a cop long enough to sense when something wasn't right. Armed with the new evidence, detectives tracked down surveillance footage from surrounding buildings. Eventually, a blurry shot of the mystery man was enhanced just enough to identify a local with a known criminal record. He was arrested a week later, living under a false name 2 states away. Without Shadow, they might have never known there was a second man. Dan's partner had given them the missing piece. After the second arrest, something in Shadow shifted. He began to eat again. He started responding to commands. He even wagged his tail when Ellie came home from school. It was as if he knew justice had been served. The town rallied around the Monroe family and around Shadow. The police department installed a bronze statue of Officer Dan and Shadow in front of the station. Beneath it, an inscription, "Partners Forever," even after the final call. Shadow lived 3 more years after Dan's death. On the anniversary of the funeral, he passed peacefully in his sleep. Ellie, now 12, was by his side. He was buried next to Dan in the small police cemetery on the hill. At his burial, officers lined up in formation once again. This time, for the dog who never stopped being a cop. A flag was folded, a bugle played, and one by one, each officer placed a single rose on the grave. Shadow's collar rests today in a shadow box at the police station, right beside Dan's badge. This was the true story of Shadow, the dog whose strange behavior at a funeral wasn't just mourning, it was a final mission, a warning, and ultimately justice. Don't forget to like this story if it kept you hooked. Comment your thoughts. Was it love, power, or something else? Subscribe and turn on notifications for more real and emotional stories.